What's up, guys? Welcome to the video today. Today I'm going to address a topic that I get asked a lot about. Skinny fat. What to do if I'm skinny fat? Should I bulk? Should I cut? How do I address this? Let's start off by defining what skinny fat is. So skinny fat, generally speaking, is someone who is skinny but has a little bit of extra body fat on them. Maybe they have a little bit of a gut, a little bit of a belly, but they're not extremely overweight or obese. At most, if they wanted to, get shredded and get lean to see their abs, they probably would only have to lose somewhere between 10 to 20 pounds-ish as a rough estimate. So again, there's someone that's relatively skinny. Like looking at them, you wouldn't say they're obese, but they're not lean. They don't have shredded abs. They don't have definition in their muscles. So that creates kind of a confusing situation for someone who's skinny fat and they're not sure, should I, cut down to get leaner? Should I bulk up to add some more muscle mass? Because they're not, like I said, necessarily muscular, but they're not necessarily lean. So what do I recommend? In that situation, as a beginner, I recommend going through a slight cut. Why do I say that? Because if you're a beginner, you have the benefit of beginner gains, where you can build muscle and burn fat at the same time. It's a temporary process, but if you do this correctly, you can effectively reduce your body fat and add some muscle at the same time, and that will put you in a better position in terms of how you look physically, rather than just trying to lose weight or just trying to put on muscle. Again, this is specific to a beginner, someone who's brand new to lifting, and then this is temporary. So let's give an example. Let's put some numbers behind this. Let's say you're 5'10" and you weigh 150 pounds and you have 10 pounds to lose. Okay, so we lose roughly a pound a week. So maybe you go on a calorie deficit. It takes you about 10 weeks to lose those 10 pounds of fat, and that gets you lean enough to see the muscle. However, along the way, you're also lifting with some weights, progressively overloading your muscles, getting stronger. That stimulus of going from not exercising at all to exercising will enable you to also put on muscle at the same time. So perhaps, I'm just pulling numbers out of thin air. I'm not saying this is exactly how this would work, but just to give some illustration to the point. You lose the 10 pounds, but then you also add on 3 or 4 pounds of muscle mass. So let's say you put on 4 pounds of muscle in 10 weeks and you lost 10 pounds of fat. You have lost effectively 6 pounds, so you'd weigh around 144 pounds, but there would be a greater change in the way that you actually look because you've lost muscle, or you've lost fat and put on muscle at the same time. So that's, I think, the ideal scenario for someone who is a skinny fat person and are not sure what to do. Now, in regards to actually calculating how many calories you need to eat in order to lose weight, I would recommend using a free app called Myfitnesspal, or you can go on Google and type in calorie calculator. You want to come up with a personalized calorie number for yourself to see how much food, how many calories you actually need to eat to lose weight. And then another thing to note too, especially if you are new to lifting, you also want to make sure you're getting enough protein in per day in order to build muscle mass. I recommend about 1 gram of protein per pound that you weigh, so that way you get enough protein in to, like I said, build muscle mass after you put in the hard work working out. If you are someone who's experienced lifting and you can't get the beginner gains, I would recommend in your situation to go through a slight cut first and reduce your body fat before you start bulking up. A couple reasons. Usually when you're skinny fat and when you're lifting in general, if you're conscious about the way you look and that's a priority for you, I'd much rather see you work towards a goal that's allowing you to improve the way you look rather than delaying the improvement in the way you look. And what I mean by that is, as you reduce your body fat, as you slowly lose weight, you start to improve the way you look. You look better. You might not be adding on slabs of muscle and being huge and jacked, but you're going to start to lean out. You're going to start to get some abs, and that's going to generally make you feel a little bit better about the way you look, hopefully happier with the progress you're making, and able to be more consistent in working out and reaching your goals in general. So that's why I would recommend usually someone get leaner first. And then also the second factor, once you get to a lean body fat, then you're setting yourself up for a much more effective and long-term bulk where you can put on some muscle mass. So think about things in context, in the proper context. So just because you're going through a period of time where you're reducing your body fat and you're getting leaner, doesn't mean you're going to be skinny forever. Okay, we're accomplishing a couple different things here over the long term, but over the short term, we've got to focus on one thing at a time. So again, in the case of someone who's already got experience lifting, you can't do both building muscle and burning fat at the same time. I'd recommend you go through a cutting phase. You get to a low body fat, start to get your abs a little visible. Yes, you might feel really skinny and it might not be super motivating, but hopefully the fact that you're starting to see some more muscle definition, hopefully that will help to make you feel a little bit better about yourself and be happier about your current situation. And then after a short cut, because it's not going to take that long if you're a skinny fat person, you don't have too much fat to lose. Um, After you've transitioned or after you've reached that goal of getting some abs, getting a little defined, then you can go ahead and bulk up and focus on adding muscle mass. And the reason I recommend going through the cut first is because if you were to just start as a skinny fat person with bulking, you're just going to increase your body fat. You will add muscle for sure, but your physical appearance is not going to change as dramatically or as positively as if you were to go through a cutting period first. Because when you're bulking up, you're adding on calories, you're gaining weight, and you are putting on fat along the same time as you're building muscle. And so sometimes the muscle gains that you get are not as visible, and the fat gains will be more visible. So for example, if you already have a little bit of a tummy, the belly's just going to get bigger. It's not going to get slimmer or anything like that. You'll definitely get stronger in the gym, but I would much rather you, and I do recommend for someone who's skinny fat to cut down first, get a little bit lean, and then start a slow and steady bulk, so that way you can maintain a lot of that leanness throughout the bulking cycle. You can add some more muscle mass to you, and that way you're in a much better physically, you're in a much better position in terms of the physical appearance of your body for a longer period of time. You're generally happy with the way you look. You're not afraid of taking your shirt off or things like that because, like I said, you're relatively lean and you're still going about the business of putting on muscle down the road when you're bulking up. So I think that is the most effective strategy for someone who is skinny fat, is to go through a slow cut first, get to a low body fat, and then bulk up. That's generally speaking what I recommend. Now that doesn't mean that if you don't do that, and if you just decide you want to bulk up first, that that's necessarily wrong. But there's a couple things you have to consider if you do the bulking route first. Number one, like I already mentioned a little while ago, you're going to be adding on more body fat. So don't expect huge dramatic physical improvements in the way that you look. So just be conscious of that. If you're really passionate about just getting a little bit bigger and getting stronger, then you can focus on that for sure. But just know that down the road, you are going to have to go through a cutting period if you want to get leaner, and that's going to cause you to have to lose more weight over the long term. Your cut is probably going to have to be longer than if you started off with a slower cut to set yourself up for a leaner bulk, if that makes sense. And so that's okay too. Like I said, I don't prefer to do it that way. I don't recommend for people to do it that way, but if that's something that you personally feel more passionate about, you really want to get some strength going in the gym and get bigger, you can absolutely do it that way. To finalize this video, one thing I really want to address too is sometimes people get confused about a lot of stuff, and sometimes people fall into this trap. And it's not necessarily just skinny fat people, but let me lay this out for you. Sometimes people, especially if they're skinny fat or they're skinny in general, they are already relatively lean, or maybe when they get really lean, they start to get worried because they feel like they're getting small. So in the case of someone who's skinny fat, as they start to reduce their body fat, they start to feel even smaller, and getting less comfortable with the way they look. And so then they get really nervous about that. They get really scared. I'm losing a lot of muscle mass. I don't want to do this. And so they transition after cutting for maybe a week or two into bulking. And then they start bulking up, but then they start noticing, oh, I'm putting on some belly fat. I'm getting chunky. And then they get worried about that. So they start cutting. And what I want you to avoid, and I want you to avoid this pitfall and this trap, and I've fallen to this trap myself, pick a goal and work towards that goal. Set yourself a timeline. I'm gonna do this for 3 months. I'm gonna see it all the way through no matter what. And do that, because if you keep going back and forth between I'm too skinny and now I'm too fat and this and that and that and this and that, you're not going to make any progress. You're just going to spin your wheels and you're going to frustrate yourself. You're not going to feel as motivated to work out, and I don't want to see you burn yourself out. I'd much rather see you stick to a goal and work towards that goal. Yes, you're going to lose a little bit of muscle and you're going to get a little bit skinnier when you cut, but look at the positives of that. You're going to look better in terms of being lean, and you should be happier with the way you look, generally speaking, because you're not putting on as much fat. Now, when you're bulking up, yes, you're putting on more fat, but you have to remember that you're also building muscle, and you should be able to focus on other things like your lifts in the gym. Your energy levels when you train should be high. So try to focus on those things, and then understand the context of what we're doing here. This is temporary. Just because you're cutting for a short term or bulking up here or there doesn't mean that's forever. This is all a means to an end. We're working towards the long-term goal of putting on more muscle and getting leaner down the road. It's not a death sentence. It's not like this is going to be your situation forever. So just keep that in mind, keep that in context, and I would really encourage you to focus on that specific goal. See it all the way through. It's going to be, it might be challenging for you, especially if you're bulking up and you get worried about losing some definition. You start putting on some body fat, but keep powering through, keep fighting through it, because it's going to reward you down the road as you build up strength in the gym, as you add muscle mass, and then you transition back into that cutting period. And after you lose some of that belly fat you've put on, you'll start to notice all the hard work has paid off, and you'll be able to see a lot more muscle mass that you've built up over the period of bulking. One final note I want to end the video on is if you're a beginner and you're looking for exercise routines, you can check out some of the other links and some of the other videos I have on my channel. For example, for a lot of beginners, I recommend an upper body, lower body workout routine. I've got videos detailing the exercises and things you need to do that routine, and I'll provide links for them down below. But appreciate you guys checking out the video. If it was helpful for you, please like and subscribe down below for future content. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody.